I arrived at the last lesson of the fundamentals in the Tisch Academy. So welcome to my studio and to this video in which I document my art journey. And I actually arrived at the last lesson. Now at the time of filming that actually was the last lesson, but since then Andrew has posted another video after that, but that is more of a demonstration. So this is actually the real last lesson for now, unless he adds more later on, who knows. Now I did not paint the same subject in this lesson as Andrew did. I cheated a little bit. I made it myself easy. But I will compensate for that in the next video in which I'm going to make a composition of a number of objects. So this lesson I made it myself easy and focused on the essence, the most important thing of this lesson, and that is painting the glass. And in the next video I'm going to compensate for the little bit less work I did in this video, and I will do a lot more work. So I invite you to come along with me in this video where I'm going to actually end the fundamentals of the Tisch Academy. The next lesson Andrew is doing is all about painting actually glass without that content. Not like the jar we've done, but painting actually glass like you can see it here. This is a subject, Protea flower in a jar. I'm just picked from the kitchen, from some cupboard. Just pick the glass, filled it with water and put a straw in it. I'm not going to paint that whole flower, but I want to focus really on the glass. And in that, from the previous lesson, I realized that the way I'm going to paint my background is really important. Now, normally I would paint the same color straight through, but as you can see here, the bit where the glass is, I'm using slightly different color, and that already gives the impression of a bit of glass. Now this bit I found a bit strange. If you look into the glass, you actually see the reflection on the top of the water from the bottom. That was a bit tricky, but that really already, this gives the whole idea that we're now having a glass, and I haven't even painted glass really. Now the straw, of course, if you look from the angle I looked at this glass, it breaks up. That is what it does. It breaks up these objects and they seem to shift. And again, that helps with giving the impression of this being glass. And now from the previous one I learned, don't go too opaque with your mixes, make them a little bit more transparent. And to be honest, this was relatively easy now, because I spent all the time in the previous lesson on trying to get the philosophy behind what was happening. This was relatively easy. Yeah. Now my shape of the glass could have been better. Yeah, I could have had a nicer ellipse, but I think for this lesson it worked pretty well. And also here again, by adding all these tones and colors I normally wouldn't add, but it works. It gives the impression that we're looking at a glass with some content, with a glass of water. Now I'm not going to compare this one to the one Andrew did, because that is total different subject. For me it was all about, can I paint that glass and let it appear, and having the right relationship between the objects, the straw, the background and actually the ground, and painting it in such a way that this looks like a glass of water. And I think this was really pretty successful. And I think that's about it. This is a short video, even though his painting took way longer than mine. That's because I cheated a little bit, but I will compensate for this, because in the next video you will see me make a complete composition and pulling together everything that I've learned from these foundations and making my own composition with that. So with this one I made it myself relatively easy, but with the next one I'm going to paint a complicated subject, pick all kinds of items from my studio and just put them together in one composition and paint that. But that is for the next video.